Welcome to Conflict News 24. Several news stories for you about the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Firstly, Russian Wagner fighters created a death trap for Ukrainian soldiers in a town to the south of Bakhmut. Reportedly, hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in a town which was vacated by Russians. Was it a death trap for Ukrainian forces? Secondly, we know that some sabotage operations have been conducted by Ukrainian forces inside Russia. Some were in the form of drone strikes, air strikes, and some were in the form of ground operations. And yesterday, Ukraine confirmed death of 4 of its soldiers on Russian soil. It seems that Russians are exaggerating alleged Ukrainian sabotage operations in Russia. Today, Russian media claimed that 2 criminals had been killed who were planning a sabotage operation backed by Ukraine in a place which is on Georgia-Russia border, far away from Ukraine-Russia border. And lastly, viewers, Erdogan is being recommended for Nobel Peace Prize. The man who was militarily involved in some war in the last 2 to 3 years is being recommended for this prize. Details for you. Firstly, viewers, Bakhmut front still the busiest front, the most strategic front between Ukrainian forces and Russian allied forces, Wagner fighters, DPR fighters. Here it seems that Russians created a death trap for Ukrainian soldiers in a town to the south of Bakhmut, the city. Name of this town is Opytne. If you remember, last week I reported that Russians had taken around 80 to 90% of Opytne. And from Opytne and from some areas to the east of Bakhmut, Russians were trying to surround Bakhmut city. Then came Ukrainian counteroffensive. And suddenly Russians were out of Opytne. And I shared with you that Ukrainian military was back in Opytne. And after this Ukrainian counteroffensive, a counteroffensive from Russian side was launched, which led to large number of casualties of Ukrainian soldiers. Now, what we have learned is that deliberately Wagner fighters withdrew from Opytne. Ukrainian military, Ukrainian forces rapidly moved in Opytne, and from southern and eastern side of Opytne, Wagner fighters ruthlessly fired at Ukrainian soldiers who were killed in large number in Opytne. And Russians are back in Opytne. It is now being visually confirmed. So it seems that the withdrawal from Opytne was deliberate, it was planned, and Ukrainian forces were deceived, and they suffered a lot in terms of material losses, in terms of casualties suffered by their forces. Opytne, large parts of Opytne are under Russian control. And they have gone past Opytne. They're bypassing it as well. They are moving to the west of Opytne. They're trying to surround, they're trying to encircle Bakhmut. But since Soledar is under Ukrainian control, it's difficult for Russians to lay siege to Bakhmut. Eastern side, partially under Russian control, and southern side too, but northern western sides under tight control of Ukrainian military. Secondly, viewers, Ukrainian sabotage operations inside Russia ongoing. Yesterday, I did a video sharing with you the news about death of 4 Ukrainian soldiers on Russian soil, confirmed by Ukrainian authorities. They were on a mission, but they were found there and they were killed. And Russians have been claiming for several months that Ukrainian military, Ukrainian intelligence agents were involved in sabotage operations inside Russia. But it seems Russians are overdoing it. Today, Russian media claimed that 2 criminals had been killed in a shootout with federal security services in Kabardino-Balkaria. Kabardino-Balkaria Republic of Russia is on Russia-Georgia border. In this republic, there is a town by the name of Chagam. Russian media claims that 2 Russian men, not Ukrainian, 2 Russian men were planning a sabotage operation. They were backed by Ukrainian intelligence services. They were in possession of assault rifles, ammunition like grenades. There was a shootout. These 2 criminals who had a criminal record as well, they were killed in the shootout. They were planning a sabotage activity in the town, Chagam town, and then allegedly they wanted to flee Russia to fight in support of Ukrainian forces against Russia. How would they reach Ukraine? From Kabardino-Balkaria through Georgia? So I personally think that Russian media, Russian government, they're overdoing it. Yes, some Ukrainian sabotage operations have been conducted on Russian soil. But if 2 criminals are killed somewhere on Georgia-Russia border, you cannot put the blame on Ukrainian intelligence agency. Russians overdoing it. Having said that, yes, Ukraine are trying to enhance its military presence, its discreet presence for sabotage operations inside Russia. Lastly, viewers, Erdogan is being named, is being recommended for Nobel Peace Prize. Turkish Parliament Speaker Mustafa Sentop has recommended Turkish President Erdogan's name for Nobel Peace Prize. And Speaker said in a statement today that Erdogan's efforts were commendable regarding efforts to find a solution to Russia-Ukraine war. In 2020, I think, Turkey invaded Syria, eastern part of Syria. There was war between Turkey and Syria for several days. Russia intervened, and in Russia, the 2 sides signed a peace agreement. After that, it was 2019, I think. After that, Turkey became involved militarily in Libya. Turkey sent its forces, its combat drones to support GNA's government in Libya. Turkey's intervention led to fighting, intensified fighting between LNA and GNA. Ultimately, Libyan civil war came to a close. Then Turkey stepped in Azerbaijan in support of Azerbaijan against Armenia. The 2 fought a war in 2020, 44-day long war. Azerbaijan, Armenia. Turkey stood with Azerbaijan. Turkish drones were there. Even Turkish F-16 were spotted in Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan defeated Armenia militarily. Conflict came to a close. Then Turkey supported Ethiopian government in the war between Ethiopian federal government and Tigray regional government. Tigray is a region of Ethiopia. Turkey provided combat TB2 drones to Ethiopian government, and that TB2 drones tilted the battlefield balance in favor of Ethiopian federal government. Tigray fighters retreated from their territorial gains, and ultimately Ethiopian government secured a military victory just a few months ago, and Tigray fighters are now surrendering. So through military interventions, Turkey brought peace, you can say, in some parts of the world. In Russia-Ukraine war, Turkey is militarily involved. Turkey is not militarily involved, though it gave TB2 drones to Ukraine. But overall, her Turkish role is not that of military support for Ukraine or Russia. Turkey mediated a grain deal between Russia and Ukraine a few months ago, which should be appreciated. But Erdogan is a controversial figure for Americans, for EU as well. EU accuses him of blackmailing EU, that he blackmails EU on refugee issue. So I don't think that Erdogan will be an acceptable person for this prize. Let's see. Will he be considered as a strong candidate for this slot? That remains to be seen. Thank you for watching.